That explains why it's been all over social media.
Josh, definitely. This is one of the more unusual stories that I have to say I have ever done in my entire career. And just to give everybody an idea of what we're talking about here, the New York City Department of Buildings says that this tunnel, which is in a very heavily populated area and neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, this tunnel went for 60 feet. It was 8 feet wide, the tunnel itself, with a ceiling of about 5 feet, and that they had actually gone under about 4 buildings to try and get in the synagogue. Now, the synagogue officials, this is the Chabad Lubavitch sect, Orthodox Jewish sect. This is their synagogue, this is their center, this is their international headquarters. And what they are saying is that a group of what their words, radical students who wanted to get into the synagogue sooner than is possible because it's under reconstruction, they dug their own tunnel. They actually had equipment that they used and they stored in a neighboring and in an adjacent room. It was pretty incredible. So here's a package that I did, the report from this Eastern Parkway location in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, earlier this week.
The NYPD was called to a location best known as a sacred site for the Chabad Lubavitch Orthodox Jewish sect. Authorities say a group of Jewish men who had a long simmering disagreement burrowed through tunnels under several buildings to break into the synagogue. They got into fights and destroyed fixtures.
The cement truck was here, and these individuals or some of their friends perhaps who broke through some of those adjoining properties disrupted the repairs and ultimately broke through the wall in the sanctuary and vandalized that wall as well. They've since been arrested.
Repairs have been underway for some time, as had the digging. The disruptor group reportedly stored their tools and equipment several buildings away in an unused mikvah, a large same-sex communal ritual bath space. Sources tell Fox 5 that forensic engineers and inspectors are investigating the structural integrity of surrounding buildings to make sure that they're safe.
This is obviously very distressing for the Lubavitch community and around the world, and Jewish people everywhere. This is a site that's of great importance for Jews all around the world, and we're looking forward to the decorum and sanctity to be restored.
Rabbi Yehuda Krinsky, chairman of the Chabad Lubavitch headquarters, said in a statement, the Chabad Lubavitch community is pained by the vandalism of a group of agitators who damaged the synagogue. The NYPD tells us that 12 men were arrested on a variety of felony and misdemeanor charges. A spokesperson for the Department of Buildings says building inspectors and forensic engineers are on the site and that they've opened an ongoing investigation. In Crown Heights, I'm Lisa Evers, Fox 5 News.
Now, some of those men were given what's called desk appearance tickets. They didn't actually have to spend time in jail. Their cases will go before a judge in the coming weeks. A lot of reaction in the community to this. People very, very shocked because this particular sect is known for having very strict rules and adhering very strictly to their leadership, particularly for the followers. So they were very shocked by this, and a lot of questions raised by the Department of Buildings, which had to send in forensic engineers to really take a look at everything here and see just what was going on, Josh.
Yeah, and on that same note, I mean, we've seen countless building collapses, parking garage collapses there in New York City and the surrounding area. This is going to be pretty dangerous when you're talking about a tunnel that is underneath a synagogue where there are all kinds of businesses and buildings that are around it.
Well, Josh, exactly, and that's exactly the point, because the sources are telling us, sources close to the investigation are telling us that this tunnel is actually spanned through the space of 4 buildings, and that some of the residents reported hearing noises at night, not knowing what was going on. But of course, it was this digging. I mean, 8 feet wide, you're talking 8 feet wide, you're talking a ceiling of 5 feet underground going underneath these buildings. Many of the buildings in that particular neighborhood are very old also. So the structural integrity was of a great concern to the buildings inspectors, because all it takes is one hole somewhere and an entire wall of a townhouse or of one of the apartment buildings could have come crashing down. The other issue too that we've had with other situations here in the city, and it's not just unique to New York, it can happen anywhere when you start digging underground. You're digging in a very, very populated area, so there's gas mains, there's sewer mains, there's electrical wiring, there's a lot cables, there's a lot of stuff that is underneath the streets of New York that could have been affected. Now, obviously, this has been going on for quite some time, and again, the authorities wanted to stress that this was not a hate crime. This was a group of Jewish students who were anxious to see that synagogue completely repaired and renovated. And so what they did was they put what's called a stop work order. They ordered all construction stopped so that they could really get a handle on what was going on, seal up what they needed to seal up. And then towards the end of this past week, they were able to start the real reconstruction and repairs that were seemingly to take too long for some of the people that tried to break in there. But a really crazy situation, and a lot of people were shocked because this is a community that typically sticks to itself, and also the members of the synagogue and of that particular sect, they generally follow what the leadership is telling them. So this was a big shock to a lot of people, including I think some in that Chabad Lubavitch community, Josh.
Well, and what's interesting, something else that stood out to me that you said is these people who are there are hearing something. They're like, what's going on here? And somebody is building a tunnel. They're in a tunnel right there, I guess, below their business, their home, whatever it is. That's got to be terrifying when they figure out that there was a person just under there.
Well, it's terrifying on a lot of levels because number one, you don't know, is this somebody trying to break in? Are they trying to, come in through a basement? Are they trying to get in from another floor and try to break into someone's apartment or someone's home? But these sounds, they were doing it late at night, so most of the complaints were from residential people. And the other thing too is we've had a very famous rat problem, which they're trying to get under control. But some of the rats are very, very big and have been in the walls in a lot of these buildings. And when you do start digging in construction, when they start doing construction or digging up the streets to lay new fiber optic cable or phone or electricity cables or whatever else they need to do, there's typically in a lot of the neighborhoods there'll be just the rats will literally come out of the streets. So a lot of concern here from people, and we've seen, as you mentioned, building collapses, wall collapses, a parking garage collapse, a lot of things under this aging infrastructure that we have in so many places in New York City. But it's just lucky that nobody was seriously injured throughout this whole thing or the melee, because once the students were caught, they were they were destroying some of the property inside the synagogue, the benches, the chairs, and fighting. So it's just lucky all the way around that there were no serious accidents, there was no real tragedy here, and nobody was seriously injured, Josh.
Very, very true. Lisa Evers there with our Fox 5 New York team. As always, great reporting. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and break down a story that is making headlines nationally and really internationally. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.